My name is Dyson Tapia, and today I would like to talk about the relationship between language and literature. So, let's start off. What's language? Well, we know that language is how people used to communicate since the beginning of time. We've previously discussed the relationship between language and culture and concluded that language is a natural response for the need of a human to want to communicate. Like I've said it, we are social creatures and we always tend to communicate. If we're not speaking, we're trying to make hand language, but it's essential. And where did it all start? It's really, there's lots of evidence pointing out that in some way, somehow, in the beginning of times, cavemen had a language. They communicated, and then that's how they started developing the first forms of written language. Yeah, the written language we could say were Egypt, right? But it goes all the way back to Mesopotamia and even further back to the Sumerians. But that's another story, okay? And what's literature? Literature, on the other hand, it's not verbally. It's how we transmit that language into written form. How language takes upon itself to express themselves through written form, which is passed on generation to generation. A clear example is the Bible. Like our teacher clearly stated, it's a book made of various prophecies or disciples, we could say, that each and every one of them contributed towards this. They wrote it down, and up to now, we still see that book. Another example is, of course, Charles Dickinson, Moby Dick, the Christmas Carol. These are classic, right? And I think that explains most what literature is. It's how we express language and culture at the same time in a written form. But what's the relationship between them? How are they related? I think I've gotten ahead of myself and explained how we could say literature needs language to exist and language needs literature to be passed on, right? But I also think that there's another element towards this, and it's called culture. I strongly believe that literature, language, and culture are completely related. Why? Because here we know that literacy possesses both a cultural and a linguistic method. Because literature was first produced by the early civilizations and is a mixture of these stories, these myths, right? Literature wants to express much more than what we do in speaking, point A, point B, right? Literature gives a bit more emphasis on the dramatic side. That's why there's novels, there's series, there's comic books. That's a kind of literature, and much more. There's mini novels, there's series, and these are always thought out and always incorporated cultural aspects, such as, let's say, an example, United States. Clearly in the guide it says the pre-colonial period that takes up Native American struggles. We could say, let's say, Scarlet Letter. That's a pre-colonial period, or Jamestown, a colonial period. Here we have how the 13 states were developed. We could talk about religious and historical writing. Then there's comes the American Renaissance. Once they've independized, we could say that they started going out, talking about what makes them American, their values, right? Then we have realism and nature. Here we talk about the greatness of the land, greatness, the fertility of the land, how great are the mountains, how great are the people. And we talk about our day to day. And now we have modernism, and we'll continue to incorporate our cultural aspects into literature. Why? Because literature, to be literature, we need we need to mix it up with culture, and that gets emphasized creating myths, legends, stories, something interesting about the era, and that is impossible without the use of language. And I think that's the clear relationship between language, literature, and especially we can't never leave out culture. Thank you.